Democrats lie about everything. That's not news. You're going, Doug, I know. Even economic hard scientific numbers, they completely lied about Biden's entire economy was much worse than we thought. Trump inherited a disaster, and our only chance of turning around is tariffs. All the economic experts were wrong. Welcome to Doug in Exile. I'm going to give you good news because America is rescued largely by Trump. This is a Hail Mary pass. It's like we got to pull this thing out, but it's only because we've been lied to by Democrat economists. Here's what we're seeing, and the final impact on consumer is much less than people expected. This is a economic advisor. They come out with all good news for Trump's economy.
So what we're learning is that the final impact on the consumer is much less than people expected. This number now, if the Fed is truly data dependent.
If the Fed is data dependent, if you're going to go with data and not politics, listen to this, because the consumers are not getting hit as bad as they thought. So if you were going to be honest with interest rates, listen to this.
The question should be, why not 50?
Right. Do you think that's on the table in a big way at this point?
If it's a data-dependent Fed, it should be.
Why not 50? What does that mean? A 50%, a half of a percentage rate cut. So they're talking right now about 2 rate cuts by the end of the year to try and save America, because Trump has unfairly not had his interest rates cut because they're afraid of inflation, right? Well, they keep proving over and over again, inflation isn't happening. It's not happening. The tariffs didn't work out and create inflation. This guy, Mohammed guy, is saying that not only should we do a 1/4% interest rate cut, we should consider 0.5 point interest rate cut, which is a massive change in interest rates. It's big. It doesn't sound like much from here, but just so you know, they don't do these quarterly adjustments that much. They don't often do a 0.5 point interest rate cut. It's a big deal. It would supercharge the housing market because you can afford more of a housing loan. Businesses could easier borrow money. They owe Trump a lot of interest rate cuts, which is why Trump keeps trying to fire Jerome Powell, head of the Fed, and he can't get rid of him because it's a separate department. It's not directly under the president's authority. So we're putting pressure on him. Most experts agree that he will do 2 interest rate cuts by the end of the year. So that'll end up being probably 2/4 point. This economist is saying a 0.5 interest rate point would be better. We're going to go into some of the backlog here on people that Trump fired. Biden's BLS chief caught adding 2 million fake jobs under Biden. Election interference. And this is election interference. They did this right around the election. Democrat activists in Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, that's where the jobs numbers come from. The commissioner, Erica McEntarfer, I call her McEnfarter, added millions of fake jobs every month leading up to the 2024 presidential election. The goal was to help Democrats win in November, but the real problem is that it has resulted in the Federal Reserve keeping rates far too high. That's Jerome Powell. Remember, we want him to cut them by at least a 0.5 point for far too long, which dries out Trump's economy. So it would be supercharging even more if they took their finger off the political scales. Erica deserved to be prosecuted, not just fired. How many people can't afford homes because of her partisanship? This harms every American, because every American pays a certain interest rate, including your credit cards. So you can see the far-reaching political, this lady's supposed to be a neutral expert just working that Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the statistics have been compromised and corrupt. Why? Because a Democrat touched them. When the Democrat touches science, it's corrupted. When it touches religion, it's corrupted. When it touches your government, it's corrupted. When it touches labor statistics, any statistic, it's corrupted. Here's from the White House, officially from Trump, just out. There's no inflation, says Trump. No inflation. Too late is what he calls Jerome Powell, because he's too late with his interest cut. Do you guys understand now? Just out, no inflation. Too late, must lower the rate big right now. Powell is a total disaster. Who doesn't have a clue? President Donald J. Trump. Moving on. Here's back at CNBC. President Trump was right. The experts were wrong. Yet again, here we go.
PPI, wholesale inflation for August, expected to be up 0.3. No. down 0.1%. Down.
Instead of inflation being up, inflation is down. There's no inflation, so let's get an ease on the interest rates for borrowing money.
1/10. Wow. That would be the first negative number since April of this year when it was minus 0.2. If you strip out food and energy, we're also expecting up 0.3. It's minus 1/10 as well.
So see how the predictions have all predicted high, bad numbers for Trump? Then reality comes, they have to adjust them all down. It was better. It was better. Every economic analyst has been lying to us for years in favor of Democrats and against Republicans, never more so than against Trump.
It's 1/10, the same. Last time we had a minus number was April, and we're comping to minus 0.2 in April. And I do want to point out, last month we had up 0.9 on both those variables. They were the highest going back to March of 22. They just were revised slightly lower to 0.7, so 0.7% for each of those in the rearview mirror for July. Now let's look at ex-food, energy, and trade. Finally, as expected, up 0.3, which follows up 0.6 unrevised at this point. Up 0.3 would actually be the smallest going back to 0 in June of this year. Now the year over year, in my opinion, these are the most important. And boy, I'm surprised. Real progress here. 2.6 on year over year headline. We are expecting 3.3 in the rearview mirror, 3.3. 2.6 will be the lowest since it was 2.4 in June. And it underscores whether it was tariff driven or not. Those little blips seem to be moving back into the sunset. Year over year ex-food energy, 2.8%. That's core 2.8, expecting 3.5.
Okay, a whole lot of numbers. Look at Bitcoin down there. Let me get out of the way. 113, guys, Bitcoin. I'm not a financial analyst. I'm not giving advice. Bitcoin's going to double by the end of the year. How's that? By the way, the stock market, very volatile. It could, all analysts have been saying for the last 8 years, it's been all upside. We're expecting an adjustment down on the stock market. However, if Trump gets these interest rates cuts, usually it supercharges the economy. Okay, all of the stock traders. So this is going to affect your 401k and your retirement, and a generally stable economy. It spikes the economy, and that's what will drive Bitcoin up, because Bitcoin loosely tracks the health of the economy. With liquid money, with money going into our economy, people get confidence and they start going, I'm going to put some assets into Bitcoin. I'm going to put more assets into retirement. And man, do I hate bonds. I know a lot of you guys are in bonds. My dad loved bonds. Never leave your money in a bank either. In a bank where you're getting 0.2%. It's a ripoff. Put your money to work, guys. Now remember, I'm a barely literate comic book artist. I don't technically know what I'm talking about, but I do pretty well on the stock market. Here's RFK Jr. on new. This is going to absolutely reorient a ton of things. He's going to force pharmaceuticals to name all side effects in their commercials. So if they buy a 4-minute commercial, it's going to all be having to list all the side effects with their medicine.
The president just signed an executive order making some news here when it comes to pharmaceutical ads.
The president just signed an executive order that's an historic change in the way that pharmaceutical advertising is done on television. And the order basically reinstates, or gives us now the opportunity to reinstate the 1997 rules. Prior to 1997, pharmaceutical advertisers were required to put all the side effects on their ads. Many of them didn't advertise because it lengthened because of what it did to the length of the advertising. And that the removal of that requirement in 1997, FDA changed the rule to allow them to report the side effects on a website or on a telephone.
Yeah, on a website. No one's going to check that website. Now they're going to have to do it back in their commercials. Remember all the commercials that go like, may cause, internal bleeding, diarrhea, suicidal thoughts, cancer, hepatitis. They're going to have to name all the side effects now. This actually affects all of us who get commercials payment for like YouTube channels, but especially like Fox News is almost entirely all of those ads. If you ever watch Fox News, they're purchased by pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals are the ones that have the kind of money to waste on cable, on all of this stuff, most of the commercials that you'll see during daytime television. So if they start pulling ads, or they can't spend as much time and it's not as profitable for them, it can actually undermine cable news. which I like. It's good for my channel. Come on over to here, guys. Turn off the TV, come to Exile. I'll give you the news. Or you can sit there and still watch CNN, just absolutely lie. This is about the Fed Governor Lisa Cook, who Trump tried to fire, and then a judge comes in and says that he can't fire her. This is what the Democrats do all along. These are unelected Democrat activist judges. They think they're more powerful than the president. Here's two dingling Democrats trying to figure it out.
A bunch of other factors. But I want to just note there's some breaking news tonight that a judge has now blocked Trump's effort to fire the Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, saying that she is substantially likely to prevail in her challenge of Trump's attempt to fire her.
There's Jerome Powell and Lisa Cook, two criminals. Lisa Cook, what is she busted for? Same thing as Letitia James and Adam Schiff. Real estate fraud. She owns two different properties, claims them both as a primary residence to avoid taxes or, favorable taxes on the one that's her primary residence. She'll go to that tax right, regardless of where she lives. This is a very common form of fraud. And she's just like all the other Democrats doing it.
This is going to continue as a legal fight, but it's just interesting to me that Trump did all of this, fired the BLS chair, tried to fire a Federal Reserve governor just to get an interest rate drop. And that might happen anyway, not because the economy is so strong, but because the economy might be weaker than he even thought.
Oh, okay. So now it's a weak economy. This is so dumb. Trump may be wanting a lower interest rate, but it's because interest rates are kept artificially high by Democrats that want to destroy his career. He has to clear out that the Federal Reserve is corrupt, full of Democrats politicizing numbers is the problem.
So as it relates to the Fed, to the Governor Cook, there's some serious allegations there.
Yeah, serious allegations. She's guilty. Fire her. Here's Elon Musk. It should be vastly easier to become licensed as a hairstyler, as a judge, licensed as a barber. This is one that went around that it's easier to get licensed as a black judge than to become a hairstylist. To make it easier to recruit black judges, multiple states don't require magistrate to have college degrees, much less law degrees. Those same states require barbers to have thousands of hours of training and licensing regardless of skin color. Meritocracy versus DEI, my people. Now, for those of you worried about the economy, Elon Musk says robots using AI is going to save us all.
You're in Palo Alto and not Washington, D.C.
I'm at Tesla Global Engineering Headquarters in Palo Alto.
Yeah. So no more Washington, D.C. You're back at work. You're focused. Yeah?
I haven't been to D.C. since May.
Okay.
That was a hell of a side quest.
That was a good side. Any lessons from your time in Washington, D.C.?
The government is basically unfixable.
The government, his conclusion, the government's unfixable, so he left Washington.
Elon,
that's a frustration with Doge and that they would come up with these cuts. He was against the big, beautiful bill, that there weren't enough cuts, that they weren't helping him cut spending enough.
I applaud David's noble efforts in this.
And David Sachs is the guy in the middle that he's talking about right here. David Sachs, that's him second from the left, who's always sitting at Trump's right hand. He's the crypto czar, big on big tech, working with Trump. And he goes, hats off to David Sachs, you poor thing.
It's good to have talented people in the administration. But at the end of the day, if you look at our national debt, which is insanely high, the interest payments exceed the Defense Department, War Department budget. And they keep rising. So if AI and robots don't solve our national debt, we're toast.
If AI and robots, so see, he's going out of government and going to the private sector to try to come up with a different solution to do something that he knows a little better than government. But he said if AI and robots, for those of you who fear AI and robots, Elon Musk intends to use them to save America from the crushing national debt, which just the interest rates alone on that debt is more than the entire Department of War, Pete Hegseth's entire Department of War spends in a year just servicing the interest on the debt. Wait, there's more. PPI fell in August, says Fox Business.
This is what prices that wholesalers pay to get their goods for August unexpectedly fell negative 0.1% for the month of August, month over month. And at the core level, stripping out volatile food and energy prices also surprisingly fell 0.1%. The expectation for both of those was 0.3. Year over year, PI coming in
This is the same thing as the first clip that I showed you guys. The good news is the experts were wrong. The experts are stupid because the experts are Democrat. Here's libs of TikTok. Remember last year when they revised the job numbers and found that 818,000 jobs created under Biden didn't even exist? Well, they just revised those wrong numbers that were off by 800,000 again and found that another 900,000 jobs didn't exist. Democrats lie about everything. That's NBC News. The U.S. added 818,000 fewer jobs. And then they had to say later, they had to cut it even more. The U.S. created 911,000 fewer jobs. All of the jobs numbers, even when they lied about Biden's terrible economy, it was worse than they reported. And then it was even worse than that. Liars all the way down. Here's Senator Mike Lee saying the same thing. Biden-Harris were desperately trying to win an election on fake job numbers. Americans deserve accuracy from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, that's on that same thing. Here's Hans Mankey. When Trump fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner for incompetence, the fake news had a giant meltdown, claiming that he only did it because he didn't like the jobs numbers. That's what Abby Phillips said in that CNN clip. Now it turns out she overstated Biden's 2024 growth by 1 million, which is the biggest revision in economic history. Looks like Trump deserves an apology and the Bureau of Labor Statistics deserves a purge. They should be fired. He was justified. It's not political. Here's Speaker Mike Johnson. Today's revised BLS jobs numbers prove two things. One, the Biden-Harris administration hid behind inflated jobs numbers to mask the failure of their policies. Number two, President Trump was right to clean house at BLS. Wall Street investors and policymakers rely on real-time accurate economic data to make consequential decisions, not revisions years later. President Trump and Republicans have known this all along, as we did in Exile, and the forecasters didn't. The experts were wrong, and I don't give them the credit of, oh, it was an innocent mistake. It's they're liars and corrupt is why they were wrong. Subscribe to this channel. Follow the news here. I'll keep you guys updated on all things economic and MAGA. I'm Doug in Exile. Buy Bitcoin.